Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZTV Live. Today's Wednesday, January 20th, Inauguration Day. And it's also Legal Matters with our guest, Paul J. Dean. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring Paul Dean on the screen. Paul, welcome back to ZTV Live.
Thanks, Susan. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, too. How was your New Year and your vacation and your holidays?
Oh, it was wonderful. I was able to get down to Florida for a few days and get a little bit of sunshine and spend some time with family on the beach and those types of things. So now we're back and ready to dive into what we all hope and assume will be a much better year.
A much better year, I agree. And today is hopefully a wonderful beginning to that new year. So, thank you for coming on the show as usual. I think that you want to be addressing some small business issues tonight, right?
Absolutely. Working with small businesses is one of the parts of my practice that I enjoy very much. The small businesses in our community are really the lifeblood. There's over 35,000 small businesses in Fairfax County alone. It employs more than 200,000 people, and it's vitally important. The COVID crisis has obviously been a big challenge on small businesses this year, and I really hope that we'll move through the COVID crisis soon with the vaccines rolling out and things like that, and so that some of our small businesses will be able to get back on their feet and get back to prospering.
Yeah.
It's been amazing to me that a lot of the small businesses that I work with, the resiliency really. Small business owners are creative and hardworking people, and they've really done a lot of different things to stay through and weather the storm. And most everyone's been able to hang in there that I've known and worked with, and wish everybody definitely a more successful and prosperous year.
Definitely. I too, I share your sentiment. I've been really impressed with the nimbleness and the creativity and the undaunted attitude that small businesses have taken. And especially here in Old Town and in Del Rey and all neighborhoods in Alexandria, there are so many small businesses. And, they're services that we all rely on. And they are doing it, but they do
Mhm.
need our help as consumers to support them, as much as we can. But they really have done an amazing job in what has been, really ridiculously trying circumstances. So, where would you, the headline of the show is saying avoid legal pitfalls for small
Mhm.
businesses, and God knows that, there are plenty of them. Where would a small business even begin to do that?
Well, there are a lot of resources out there. One of the things that I do is I consult with small businesses all the time, and I offer a program which basically, just like you go to the doctor, and get your physical checkup, or your car you take in for a tune-up, once a year, or an inspection, things like that. I work with small businesses and give them what I call a legal tune-up. It's a product I offer where I go in and spend a day and just sort of looking through their practices and their documents and those types of things, and helping them look for liability and those types of things. But you know, it, you know, there's also the local government has small business agencies that are very helpful. I've found. Fairfax County and City of Alexandria have small business commissions that are dedicated to helping the small businesses deal with a lot of the issues that arise. So there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of resources out there and on the internet and things like that. But sometimes it's good to get when you're talking about legal matters. Sometimes it's good to get a lawyer in there, in a preventative fashion more than anything else. What I
Right.
find in representing small businesses is that an ounce of prevention, sort of. avoids a pound of pain down the road.
Of pound of pain, exactly. And I was going to say not only that, but it's also a lot cheaper, the preventative
Right.
measures rather than
Yeah.
fixing something after it's already kind of gone awry.
Yeah. The last thing that any small business really needs is a lawsuit,
Yeah.
or a hearing if they've run afoul of the government regulating bodies. I mean, if you're a small business, you have to deal with the city, you have to deal with the state, you have to deal with the federal government, and there's a lot of there's a lot of pitfalls there. If you're not doing things the right way, you can find yourself getting on the wrong end of some of the regulators, and you want to avoid getting fines or even being shut down. So
Hmm.
I've unfortunately for some of my clients, I've been on that end of it, helping them sort of deal with situations that were very challenging. That if we had worked beforehand to make sure that the way they are operating was in compliance with some of the government requirements, it would have saved a lot of time and money on the
Yeah.
back end.
Yeah. So many lessons are learned the hard way, so painful,
Absolutely.
so painful.
Yeah.
So I know that you have a couple of some top legal issues
Mhm.
that these small businesses should be aware of. Do you want to kind of just go through, just begin with some of
Sure.
those? I think that the
Yeah,
first one you
absolutely.
had
And I
said
don't know
was
if you have some.
a corporate structure.
Yeah. Well, the first
Oh,
thing I
well,
just
first
wanted
let's
to touch
start with
on.
this. I'm so sorry to interrupt, Paul, but
No
let's
problem.
start with this article. There was just an article that Fairfax County put out, right?
Yeah. So, uh, as it's probably not a surprise to small business owners out there, we're very pleased that the federal government and Congress passed a new round of stimulus relief. And there will be another round of the payroll protection program. So small businesses will be able, it's actually, the program's just opening up this week. So please, I urge all small businesses to contact their financial institutions and to see when they'll be open to accepting applications for the next round of the payroll protection program loans. Make sure that when they're spending the money, that they're doing it in a way that the loans will be forgiven on the back end. They have the new. They've done some tweaks with the payroll protection program that makes it a little bit easier. And I think for small businesses, it expands the sort of eligible uses of the funds. It sort of streamlines the application for applying for loan forgiveness, and obviously makes those funds available. And I think this is sort of the lifeline that a lot of the small businesses need to sort of get through these last few months until
Yeah,
hopefully the vaccinations kick in and those types of things.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And
so,
stuff can kind of begin to approach regular commerce again. And thank goodness that they kind of reviewed some of those restrictions and rules around the loans, because I
right.
know that some of them were a little bit difficult to, get around the first time that they issued that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There were definitely, it's a program that was sort of developed and passed into law fairly quickly, which was critical. But once the program started operating, the people, the SBA that runs the program, heard from a lot of businesses that there were some issues. It made it difficult to get the loan forgiveness, or some of the money was going out to some companies that might not have necessarily needed it as much as others. I know we saw a lot about that in the press, and so they've really sort of revised the program to make sure that the money is getting into the focus is truly on small businesses. The initial rounds are focusing on not only small business but minority and women-owned businesses will be receiving some priority there. Uh, the first in line that just opened up this week is if you're working with a community development financial institution. You'll get sort of first crack at those those loan funds. I got a notification from my bank today that they're opening up their application portal on the 19th, which was yesterday, I suppose.
Mhm.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so, so be on top of it because the money will go fast. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
that, and, the other resource that, the federal resource is the the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Relief Loan Program. There's not, if you've already taken out a loan and a grant, there's not another round of that, but there is another grant opportunity. Um, Small businesses, if you haven't looked into that program, I highly recommend it because you can,
Terrific.
you know, quick
Yeah,
infusion of cash, up to $10,000 right off the bat,
yeah.
and then get a loan that you can pay back, a low interest loan that you can pay back over the course of 30 years.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I'm going to
it's
put the
really,
slide up again for people if they want to jot down that where they can find it. They can just, I'm sure it'll be on the front page. If they just go to fairfaxcounty.gov, economic initiatives, and look it up and, try to get up to speed. And of course, if they have any questions, I think they should reach out to Paul J. Dean. And
always happy to help.
yeah, that's right. I don't have your email address up here, but I will put it up. It's and I'll put it in the comments. It's Paul at pjd-law.com. Right? Yeah. Okay, so getting into your getting into these the top legal issues, I believe that uh, here is a beginning of the presentation, and one of the top legal issues is that it's basically just a great time to look at it merely because it's the beginning of the new year. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We all make our New Year's resolutions, and as an attorney, I always like to say part of your New Year's resolution is getting your legal house in order. So whether it's getting that will or trust prepared, or and the focus of this discussion is making sure that your small business is protecting themselves really from those legal pitfalls that can result in problems down the road. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I urge all small businesses to make it a priority. Spend a day, just making sure that your documents are in order and things are up to date. And you're not setting yourself up
Yeah.
for liability down the road.
It's really good advice. Much as you would make a doctor's appointment for a physical every year, it's a good
Mhm.
idea just to kind of block it on your calendar and make the time for it for that thorough review. It's a good idea. And then also, can you talk to the corporate structure of the way that somebody has their business set up?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is fairly simple. It's one of those things that when someone starts a business, oftentimes they'll start as a sole practitioner, or a sole proprietor, or start an LLC, or an S corp, or a partnership. There's different corporate structures that a business can take, and a lot of times, as a business grows, or if the ownership structure changes, it's always a good idea to sort of review whether or not your current corporate structure is appropriate and offering you the most benefits that you could possibly have. Is it time for me to change that LLC to an S corp, or is it time for if I'm just a sole proprietor, do I need to actually form an LLC? And there's certainly advantages as far as taxation. There's advantages as far as liability protection, and those types of things. So it's always a good idea to take a look at your current corporate structure and make sure it makes sense, and make sure that you're staying on top of having the correct filings and those types of things with the State Corporation Commission.
Yep, that's great, and that's an aspect I don't think a lot of people think about. I think they kind of think like, hey, once they've done that, it's a done deal. But obviously, it can be reviewed and
Mhm.
updated or changed as needed. So it's a great piece of advice. And I believe you had also wanted to talk about an operating agreement. Can you?
Yeah, operating agreements. This comes up all the time. I work with a lot of, and I'm very surprised at the fact that a lot of small businesses don't have operating agreements. What is an operating agreement? It's basically a document that you develop that contains information about the structure of your business. It contains information about the ownership nature of the business, and how your business operates. its management structure, and what happens if the business ownership shares change, or some circumstances, someone passes away that's an owner, or if someone wants to retire or sell their share in the company. It sort of spells out all of those scenarios, and also it spells out sort of the decision making and voting structure, as far as how the business is operated. So it's very important that an operating agreement be developed. A lot of businesses, particularly small businesses, do not have operating agreements. It's even a good idea to have an operating agreement if you're, a single owner, because even though a lot of what you'll see in an operating agreement is dictates multiple owners, and sort of spells out sort of how they interact and who has the decision making authority and those things. Even a single owner business should have an operating agreement, because it can have indemnification provisions in there. It can have provisions in there about the management structure and sort of those types of things that can be delegated. So there's all types of things that an operating agreement can have.
Mm-hmm.
It really is just important that you have one of those developed, and it's not an extremely difficult thing to do.
No, it's not. It almost
Sometimes-
sounds like a little bit of a mini estate plan. Is that accurate?
yeah,
Just kind of a.
yeah. A lot of times operating agreements and estate plans kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a critically important document to
Yeah.
have on
Yep.
file.
Just something else to get
Because
your.
if you don't have one, if situations arise, basically that if there are legal issues that need to be addressed, you know the Virginia code, if you're in Virginia or whatever state you're in, basically has a set of laws that are standardized to sort of address some of the issues with these businesses. So that's kind of the default, and
Mm-hmm.
while it's fine in most cases, there are ways in an operating agreement that you can basically override what the default laws are, and make sure that your operating agreement sort of fits your corporate structure, and dictates things that in the way that you want them to go.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, moving on. Let's go. There is a business succession plan.
Yeah, and this is something that a lot of people don't think about, and it also kind of goes hand in hand with estate planning. But if you're a business owner and something happens to you, tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
whether you become disabled, or you're just unable to sort of act. So what happens to your business? Do you have a plan in place to make sure that your business interests are protected, that your business can remain operational? Do you have someone that can step in and run the business on your behalf? Do you have provisions, and this can be done in the operating agreement, that basically dictate sort of what happens with your business, and what happens with your ownership interest in the business? Does it revert back to the other owners? Does the business automatically dissolve? Does it pass on to particular family members, and are they expected to step in and sort of run the business? So it's always good to step in and make sure that you have a plan in
Yep.
place about what happens to your business in case something happens to you.
Yeah. Yep. Something that nobody wants to think about, but it's even worse if you haven't thought about it and it happens. So, just,
Right.
people pour their heart and soul into their business. It's just another level of protection and investment, really. So,
Yeah.
um, and then there's the business licenses, which I would imagine that a business license is something that most businesses have already gotten once they're established, or I guess you can start a business without a license as well, right?
Yeah, well, you can incorporate a business, or you can organize a LLC without getting a license. But if you're engaged in certain types of businesses, in most jurisdictions, certainly the city of Alexandria, Fairfax County, Depending on the type of business you're engaged in, there's required licenses to have, and they're very particular sometimes. So, for instance, I have several clients that are contractors. They can't do business unless they have a contracting license, and there are different classifications of licenses that are based on sort of the types of projects that they work on. And sometimes they'll have a business license to do one thing, but then they'll find themselves getting in trouble because they're doing another thing that they're not properly licensed for. Obviously we see cases all the time with contractors who aren't licensed at all. And any individual that wants to engage those people should make sure that they have, the proper license. One of the things that we run into that I've found that a lot of small business owners aren't aware of is that Fairfax County requires a business and professional occupational license in addition to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So Fairfax County, you actually, if you're a small business with some exceptions, you're supposed to do an annual filing with them and pay the local tax man and those types of things. So one of the things you want to do is just make sure that you're checking with your local jurisdiction and checking in with the state just to make sure that you have the proper business license to cover the activities that you're engaged in.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, it's a lot to think about. But
I don't want to try to scare anybody, but
no, but it's important to know, because again, it's one of those things you wish you knew ahead of time, and this is really valuable information for these small business owners. And the next one, of course, is contracts, and everybody. Contracts are tricky, and nobody loves contracts, but they can protect you. I mean, but I guess you have to read them carefully because they can also leave you vulnerable, right?
Yeah, contracts is that's what makes people's eyes glaze over.
Yeah, right.
People hate them. People hate to read them. People hate to write them.
And they hate to sign them.
They're critically important. When I work with with a small business that contracts, and almost all of them do, whether it's if you're in construction and you're doing contracts with customers and clients, or you're doing contracts with vendors that you work with for supplies, working with customers. Almost every small business deals in contracts in some way or another. And it's very important that if you're signing a contract, that you should have an attorney review that to make sure that you're not signing something that you don't understand or that's putting yourself at risk. If you're the person that's drafting the contract, you need to make sure of a couple of things. First of all, that the contract itself makes a proper allocation of risks. Make sure that you're protecting yourself, but also it should include assurances that you're going to be performing your end of the bargain, so to speak, whether it has warranties or guarantees or things like that. So you want to make sure that you have a really good contract template in place. The other issue I see is for many occupations and many types of contracts in the Commonwealth of Virginia, there are actual legal requirements, put out in the Virginia Code. It says a contract for services must contain these elements. There's about a dozen elements that these contracts must contain. And if they don't contain them, they can be deemed invalid. And the person that's making the contract can be fined or have their business license suspended. I'm recently working on an issue with a client who, had to work with the Virginia Department of Professional Occupation and Licensing, and because it was found that their contract was inadequate because it didn't contain certain clauses. For example, a lot of people that I work with don't realize that if you're doing a contract for a construction job, your contract must contain a clause that makes the signer aware that there's a fund that exists for grievances that can reimburse people that have complaints. It's just a standardized language clause.
Uh-huh.
My client didn't have that in his contract and got fined for it. So,
Ugh.
have someone come in, review those contracts to make sure that you're not only
Yeah.
protecting you, but also that they're legal and you
Yes,
don't end up getting
absolutely.
fined
You know,
for doing it wrong.
these really are legal pitfalls. I mean, that's such a great term for it because, you just don't even know, that they're out there. Um, okay, what do we have next? I think we have, yes, employment matters. And this would be as an employer, matters regarding your employees, right?
Yeah, and I think that this could be
This could be
a
probably
whole
a whole
show
nother topic. Yeah,
about
exactly.
employment law is a very big area of practice. But at the very least, make sure of a few things. If you're hiring someone, make sure you have a good employment agreement that sort of spells out the terms of the engagement. Certainly, I would recommend that everybody, acknowledge in their employment, letter or their employment offer that Virginia is an employment at will state. So employers generally have the right to fire employees without cause. And you want to make sure that that's noted. You want to make sure that you have an employee handbook that outlines your policies, particularly when it comes to a lot of sensitive issues that we have out there today. I'm referring to things like the Me Too movement, obviously, sexual harassment and discrimination. Those types of things are pitfalls that every employer should be aware of and have policies in place that can protect them in case of some trouble down the road.
Yep. And these are
Obviously,
probably issues that a small business might think, oh, well, the big corporations have to worry about that. I don't really have to worry about that. But
yeah,
the fact of the matter is that they should be aware of that as well.
yeah, absolutely. Because the big corporation, they have a legal team and they have internal counsel and they have resources to kind of fight these types of things. Where, if something happens to the small business, this can have a major impact.
Yeah.
Even if you're not at fault, you still have to spend the money to
Yeah.
defend yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper in the long run if you can just, if you have the proper sort of policies in place that you can demonstrate that, you're doing, regular trainings for your employees and that you're sort of doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing to comply with the federal employment laws, state employment laws, local employment laws. I mean, there's all types of things that can get you in trouble if you're not doing the right thing when you're hiring and firing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of it is, something as simple as having the required signage and postings in your place of work.
Right.
Having a OSHA poster and something from the
Right.
state of, and all that type of stuff. So,
Hmm.
so it's a lot of times, especially during COVID times, when a lot of employers have been forced to lay people off. There's a lot of people out there that are desperate and that are out to try to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
Especially if they've been laid off or fired or something like that. So what
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more often is employees are looking to sue their ex-employers, and they're making up a lot of stuff to try to get a quick settlement. Um, Rather than having to sort of drag people in court. And so it's very important that, when you hire, in particular when you fire people, that you
Yeah. Wow.
do things, you're pretty buttoned up.
Yeah.
Because
No
obviously
kidding. And I mean, that leads kind of segues beautifully into number 10 here, which are these liability traps, which I guess kind of lurk around every corner.
Yeah, and it's this is a sort of general catch-all category, but everyone should be sort of conscious of sort of what are the things as I'm operating my business where does the liability hide? Particularly if you interface with the general public. So some of the classic examples that you think about is, your place of business. You should walk around, every so often just to make sure that, everything, you're avoiding things like slip and falls or, dangerous, you're not creating dangerous conditions for people that are visiting your place of business. And also on the business operations side, you should make sure that you're properly supervising your employees, to make sure that they're doing their job correctly, that they're being honest, that they're avoiding fraud, embezzlement. I mean, there's a million things that can go
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
And so rather than kind of try to get into every different scenario out there, I would just say that do yourself a favor, and sort of take the time and really sort of analyze your place of business and your business practices, and look for those liability traps, and correct them as soon as possible so that
Yeah.
you can avoid those lawsuits.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that is just all really great, comprehensive advice. And you've only skimmed, I know, the top of in each of those, but categories. I mean, again, I think our audience here on ZTV and so many small businesses in this area could really benefit from knowing and thinking about some of these things and maybe addressing them. Maybe they've had a little taste of some of these issues already. So thank you for bringing it to the attention. And of course, if anybody out there is a small business owner and has questions and is interested in what they've been hearing tonight, please reach out and get a hold of Paul J. Dean. He's Paul at pjd-law.com. So Paul, thank you again for coming back on the show and giving us your really expert advice and stuff that we all, could use. And any help for the small businesses is really appreciated by their customers also. So.
Well, thank you, Susan. And, again, I just wish everybody a successful 2021 out there, and things are looking up. I think we're gonna get through this, and particularly my small business owner friends. So.
I think so too. Paul, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your week. And we will see you next month when you're back with Legal Matters. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. That's going to do it for us with Legal Matters tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. And please join us back up here tomorrow night. Virginia Amos will be with us, and she will have some members of Agenda Alexandria talking about some wonderful work that they are undertaking. So please tune in back here again tonight at 7 o'clock. And until then, remember to be the good news in someone's life.